Maya Chen stepped through the shimmering portal, her small hand clutched tightly around her backpack straps. The 9-year-old girl had been exploring the abandoned research facility near her home when she discovered the strange glowing doorway hidden behind a pile of old equipment. Her parents always told her that curiosity was both her greatest gift and biggest weakness, but today it had led her somewhere impossible. The world on the other side was nothing like Earth. Purple grass swayed under 3 moons, and crystalline trees hummed with an otherworldly melody. Strange floating islands drifted overhead, connected by bridges of pure light. Maya's brown eyes widened with wonder as she took her first steps into this alien landscape. She had always been different from other children. While they played with toys, she read scientific journals that her physicist mother brought home. While they watched cartoons, she studied star maps with her astronomer father. Her parents worked for the Global Space Research Initiative, and Maya had grown up surrounded by talk of distant worlds and alien civilizations. But seeing one with her own eyes was entirely different from reading about them. A shadow passed overhead, massive and dark against the purple sky. Maya looked up to see a creature that belonged in fairy tales, not in the advanced alien world around her. A dragon. Its scales shimmered with deep emerald green, and its wings stretched wider than any airplane she had ever seen. The creature landed with surprising grace about 50 meters away, its golden eyes focusing on the small human child who had suddenly appeared in its domain. Maya's heart raced, but not with fear. Her parents had taught her that the universe was full of intelligent life, and that first contact protocols were crucial. She had memorized them by age 7, just in case. The dragon's eyes held intelligence, wisdom, and something else. Surprise. The great beast lowered its massive head to get a better look at her. Its nostrils flared as it caught her scent, clearly trying to determine what kind of creature she might be. Maya noticed something that made her gasp with recognition. Around the dragon's neck hung a pendant on a thick chain, a ring with intricate patterns carved into dark metal, inlaid with what looked like stardust. "Hello, sir," Maya said in her clearest voice, following the first contact protocols her parents had drilled into her. "My mother has a ring just like yours." The dragon's head snapped back as if struck by lightning. Its golden eyes widened, and for a moment the massive creature seemed to forget how to breathe. The ring around its neck began to glow with a soft, pulsing light that matched the rhythm of a heartbeat. "Impossible," the dragon spoke, its voice rumbling like distant thunder. Maya felt the vibrations in her chest. "No human could possess a covenant ring. They were lost to your species eons ago, before your civilization even learned to make fire." Maya reached into her backpack and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Her mother had given it to her on her last birthday, along with a promise to explain its significance when Maya was older. Now seemed like the right time to learn. She carefully removed a ring identical to the dragon's pendant. The same dark metal, the same intricate patterns, the same stardust inlays that seemed to swirl with their own inner light. The dragon's massive form trembled. "Where did you get that, young human? Speak truly, for the covenant rings cannot be duplicated or stolen. They choose their bearers." Maya held the ring up, and it began to glow just like the dragon's pendant. "My mother gave it to me. She said it belonged to my grandmother and her grandmother before that. It's been in our family for as long as anyone can remember. Mom says it's supposed to keep me safe." The dragon slowly lowered itself until its great head was level with Maya's. She could see her reflection in its golden eyes. And she noticed something she had never seen before. Tiny flecks of the same stardust from the rings swirled in the dragon's pupils. "What is your lineage, child? Your bloodline?" "I'm Maya Chen. My mother is Dr. Sarah Chen, and my father is Dr. Michael Rodriguez. My grandmother was Elena Vasquez. And before that, Maya frowned, trying to remember the family stories her mother sometimes told. Before that, there's Arya Soulbringer, but Mom says the records get fuzzy after that. Some of our ancestors might not have been from Earth. The dragon's intake of breath was sharp and sudden. Soulbringer, that name has not been spoken in these realms for 3,000 of your years. The great creature began to pace, its claws leaving deep gouges in the purple ground. Child, do you understand what this means? Do you comprehend the impossibility of your presence here? Maya shook her head honestly. No, sir. I just found a portal in an old building and came through. I like exploring new places. A sound escaped the dragon that Maya realized was laughter, deep, rumbling, and somehow both amused and amazed. Of course you do. The Soulbringer line was always known for their curiosity. The dragon's expression grew serious again. Maya Chen, descendant of Arya Soulbringer, you stand at the center of events that will reshape the galaxy. Your ancestors were the bridge between worlds, the negotiators who prevented the Great War between the dimensional realms. Maya's ring pulsed brighter, and suddenly she could feel something. A connection. Like invisible threads stretching out from where she stood to points of light scattered across the universe. Each thread hummed with life and consciousness. The covenant rings, the dragon continued, were created during the first convergence, when the barriers between dimensions grew thin. They were given to representatives of different species and realms, meant to maintain communication and prevent conflict. When your ancestor Arya disappeared, we thought the human connection was lost forever. The dragon extended one massive claw, and Maya saw that it bore the same stardust markings as the rings. I am Keeper Thane, guardian of the eastern reaches and holder of the Dragon Covenant. For 3 millennia, I have protected this realm and watched for signs that the other covenant bearers might return. Your arrival here is not coincidence, young one. The barriers between worlds are thinning again. As if summoned by his words, the air around them began to shimmer. More portals opened, not just 1 or 2, but dozens. Through them, Maya could see glimpses of other worlds, other realities. A crystalline being stepped through one portal, its body reflecting light like a living prism. From another came a creature that seemed to be made of living starlight, flowing and shifting with each movement. A third portal revealed beings that looked almost human, but with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. Each being wore or carried a covenant ring, just like Maya and Thane. The convergence begins anew, Thane said, his voice heavy with both hope and concern. But child, you must understand. You are young, untrained in the ways of dimensional diplomacy. The last convergence nearly destroyed several realms when negotiations failed. Wars were fought that turned entire planets to dust. Maya looked around at the gathering beings, her 9-year-old mind trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. But instead of fear, she felt something else. A deep sense of rightness, as if this moment had been waiting for her all her life. My parents always said that talking to people who are different is the most important skill anyone can learn, she said quietly. They taught me that everyone has something valuable to share, even if we don't understand each other at first. The crystalline being chimed like wind through crystal caves. Maya somehow understood that it was laughter. The starlight creature pulsed with warm light. The color-shifting beings exchanged glances that seemed to communicate volumes. Thane's golden eyes fixed on Maya with new intensity. Child, your innocence may be exactly what this convergence needs, but innocence alone will not be enough. The challenges ahead will test not just your diplomatic skills, but the very essence of what makes humanity unique among the species of the galaxy. The ring on Maya's finger grew warm, and suddenly she could hear whispers, not words, but thoughts and feelings from the other covenant bearers. The crystalline being's thoughts were like mathematical equations that sang. The starlight creature communicated in bursts of emotion that felt like sunrise after a long night. The color-shifting beings shared memories that tasted like different spices, and underneath it all, Maya felt something else, a darkness creeping at the edges of the dimensional boundaries. Something that didn't want the convergence to succeed, something that had been waiting for the barriers to weaken so it could spread between worlds. "There's something else coming," Maya said, her young voice steady despite the fear she felt. "Something that doesn't like the light from our rings." Thane's expression grew grim. "The Shadow Collective. They were behind the failures of the last convergence, feeding on the conflicts between realms to grow stronger. If they have sensed the awakening of the Covenant rings—" Before he could finish, the purple sky began to darken. Not with night, but with something deeper, an absence of light that seemed to drink in the illumination from their rings. The other covenant bearers moved closer together, instinctively forming a circle with Maya at its center. "It begins again," whispered one of the color-shifting beings, its voice like wind through autumn leaves. "But this time, we have something we lacked before." "What's that?" Maya asked, looking up at the circle of alien faces surrounding her. Thane lowered his great head until he was eye-level with her again. "We have a human child who sees wonder instead of threat, who offers friendship before demanding proof of worth. Your species has a gift that no other possesses, Maya Chen. You have hope." The darkness pressed closer, and Maya could feel malevolent intelligence within it, studying them, planning. But her ring pulsed steadier and brighter, and she felt the connection to her new friends strengthen. "Then let's give them something to hope for," Maya said, her small hand reaching out to touch Thane's massive claw. "My mom always says that the best way to beat scary things is to help everyone work together." As her skin made contact with the dragon's claw, light exploded outward from their connection, not harsh or blinding, but warm and welcoming, the kind of light that invited rather than demanded. The other covenant bearers stepped forward, adding their own illumination to Maya's, and the circle of light pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The Shadow Collective had returned, drawn by the power of the newly awakened convergence. But this time, they faced something they had never encountered before, a human child whose innocence was matched only by her determination to protect the friends she had just made. The true test was about to begin. The circle of light held against the pressing darkness for what felt like hours, but might have been minutes. Maya's ring grew warm against her finger, and she could feel the power flowing between all the covenant bearers. But the Shadow Collective was patient, testing their defenses, probing for weaknesses. "We cannot maintain this indefinitely," said the crystalline being, whose name Maya learned was Resonance Prime. Its voice chimed like crystal bells, but underneath the musical tones, she heard worry. "The young human grows tired," observed Flux, one of the color-shifting beings. Its skin had turned a deep blue-green that Maya somehow understood meant concern. "She carries the burden of maintaining the connection, but she lacks the training." Maya felt their anxiety through the ring's connection, but she also felt something else, a memory that wasn't her own. It was fuzzy at first, like trying to remember a dream, but as she concentrated, it became clearer. She was standing in this same place, but it looked different. The grass was silver instead of purple, and there were great cities floating in the sky. A woman who looked remarkably like Maya's mother stood in the center of a similar circle, her hand raised and her own covenant ring blazing with light. But this woman was older, more confident, and when she spoke, her words carried the weight of authority. "I am Arya Soulbringer," the memory woman said, "and I speak for the human realm in this convergence. We propose something that has never been attempted. a permanent alliance between all dimensions, not just a temporary peace. The memory faded, but Maya understood now. My ancestor didn't just participate in the last convergence, she said aloud. She led it. Thane's golden eyes widened. Impossible. The records speak of Arya as a diplomat, but not as the primary negotiator. History is written by those who survive to tell it, whispered Lumina, the starlight being. Her voice was like distant music, and when she spoke, her entire form pulsed with different colors. Much was lost when the convergence failed and the barriers were sealed. Maya felt another memory surface, stronger this time. Arya standing before a council of beings from hundreds of different worlds, all arguing in languages that sounded like everything from bird songs to earthquake rumbles. But when Arya spoke, they all fell silent. The Shadow Collective feeds on our conflicts, Memory Arya was saying. They grow stronger when we fight each other. But they have one weakness. They cannot understand cooperation born from genuine care. They can mimic alliance. They can fake friendship. But they cannot comprehend love. The memory hit Maya like a physical blow. Love. That was the key. The Shadow Collective could counter strategy. They could match power. They could even predict diplomatic moves. But they couldn't understand why beings would sacrifice for each other without expecting something in return. I know how to beat them, Maya said suddenly. The other Covenant bearers turned their attention to her, hope and skepticism warring in their expressions. Child, Thane said gently, you have been here only hours. The Shadow Collective has existed since the first dimensions touched each other. They have consumed entire realities. But they've never faced humans working with friends, Maya replied. She felt her ring pulse with renewed strength. My mom and dad work with people from all over Earth, scientists from every country, sharing knowledge even when their governments don't get along. They do it because they care about understanding the universe, not because they expect rewards. She turned to address all the Covenant bearers. Resonance Prime, you think in mathematical harmonies, right? What would happen if you shared those thoughts with Lumina's music emotions? The crystalline being tilted its head. The interaction would be unprecedented, possibly beautiful. And Flux, Maya continued, looking at the color-shifting beings. Your people communicate through memory tastes. What if you could share those with Thane's ancient wisdom? It would create understanding that neither species could achieve alone, Flux admitted, its skin shifting to a hopeful yellow. That's what humans do best, Maya said, her young voice carrying a conviction that surprised even her. We connect things that don't seem like they should go together. We make friends with people who are nothing like us, and we do it because it's fun and interesting, not because we have to. The darkness around them suddenly pulsed, and Maya realized the Shadow Collective had been listening. She could feel their confusion through the barrier of light. They had expected fear, anger, or calculated strategy. They hadn't expected joy. The child speaks wisdom beyond her years, rumbled a new voice. Through one of the still open portals stepped a being that looked like a living mountain, covered in stone plates that shifted like tectonic movements. I am bedrock of the Foundation realm. My people have watched and waited through 3 convergences. We have never participated because we believed the conflicts were inevitable. Why now? Asked Thane. Because this human child suggests something that never occurred to us, that connection itself might be the goal, not a means to an end. Bedrock's voice carried the weight of eons. My people understand permanence, but we have forgotten growth. Perhaps it is time to learn. More beings began emerging from portals, creatures made of living liquid that flowed like mercury but thought like poets, beings of pure energy that communicated through controlled lightning. A delegation from what looked like a forest that had gained consciousness, with trees that walked and flowers that sang. Each carried a covenant ring, and Maya realized that the convergence was far larger than she had imagined. Dozens of dimensions, hundreds of species, all connected by the ancient network that her ancestor had helped create. But with each new arrival, the Shadow Collective's pressure increased. The darkness now completely surrounded their circle of light, and Maya could see shapes moving within it, not quite solid, but definitely there. "They're trying to understand us," Maya said, watching the shadows. "That's why they're not attacking yet. They can't figure out how to turn our connections against each other." "They will learn," warned Flux. "They always do, and when they understand our bonds, they will know how to break them." Maya felt fear for the first time since arriving in this strange world. Not for herself, but for her new friends. What if her idea was wrong? What if human optimism wasn't enough? Then she remembered something her father had told her during one of their stargazing sessions. "The universe doesn't make mistakes, Maya. Everything that exists has a purpose, even if we don't understand it yet." "Thane," she said, "tell me about the last convergence. What exactly went wrong?" The dragon's expression grew pained. "The Shadow Collective convinced several species that others were plotting against them. Fear spread faster than truth. The Crystal Singers believed the energy dancers were trying to steal their harmonic frequencies. The Void Swimmers thought the Starforgers were planning to eliminate dark spaces where they lived. Trust crumbled, and with it, the entire alliance. But what if this time we don't just form an alliance?" Maya asked. "What if we become something new together?" She reached out with her ring-enhanced senses, feeling the connections between all the beings around her. Each species was unique, with their own gifts and perspectives. But together. "Resonance Prime," she called. "Can you teach me one of your mathematical songs?" The crystalline being chimed in surprise but obliged, sharing a simple equation that felt like a lullaby when translated into sound. "Lumina, can you add emotions to that song?" The starlight being pulsed, and suddenly, the mathematical equation carried feelings: wonder, hope, the joy of discovery. "Flux, can you give it memory taste?" The color-shifting being concentrated, and the song equation emotion gained depth, carrying the taste of home and the flavor of friendship. "Bedrock, can you give it permanence?" The mountain being rumbled, and the combined creation gained weight, substance, the promise of endurance. Maya felt tears in her eyes as the creation grew, each species adding their unique gift. The forest consciousness added growth and renewal. The liquid mercury beings contributed flow and adaptation. The energy dancers gave it movement and change. What emerged was something none of them could have created alone. A pattern of thought, music, emotion, memory. Permanence, growth, adaptation. Change that was somehow greater than its parts. And at its center was something uniquely human. The pure joy of bringing different things together just to see what would happen. The Shadow Collective's confusion was palpable now. They pressed closer, trying to analyze what the Covenant bearers had created. But every time they thought they understood one part of it, another part would shift and change, adapted by a different species' perspective. "They can't copy it," Maya realized with growing excitement. "They can mimic any one of us, but they can't mimic all of us working together because they don't understand why we want to." "The child is correct," said a new voice. Through the largest portal yet came a being that seemed to be made of pure thought, shifting patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. "I am the archive of the thought realm. We have observed all previous convergences. This pattern you have created, it is unprecedented." The archive's attention turned to Maya. "Human child, your species possesses something that we have cataloged but never truly comprehended. You call it imagination, the ability to envision realities that do not yet exist and work to create them. Most species can only conceive of futures that are logical extensions of their present. You dream of impossibilities and then make them real. Maya felt another surge of ancestral memory. Arya standing in a chamber filled with beings of incredible power and intelligence, all of them dismissing her proposals as naive. But Arya had smiled and said, "That's the wonderful thing about impossible ideas. Once you prove they work, they stop being impossible." The darkness around them suddenly contracted, pressing inward with renewed force. The Shadow Collective had apparently decided that understanding wasn't necessary. They would simply overwhelm the convergence with pure malevolent force. But Maya's ring blazed brighter than ever, and she felt the connections between all the Covenant bearers strengthen. More than that, she could feel connections forming between species that had never communicated before. The pattern they had created was spreading, evolving, growing into something that connected not just the beings present, but their entire realms. "It's working," she whispered, then louder, "It's actually working!" Through the ring network, she could sense billions of minds across hundreds of dimensions suddenly becoming aware of each other. Not as potential threats or allies, but as interesting neighbors with fascinating perspectives. The Shadow Collective's assault faltered as they encountered something they had never faced before, not resistance, but invitation. The pattern Maya and her friends had created didn't fight the darkness. It offered to include it, to find out what unique perspective even the Shadow Collective might contribute to the greater whole. For the first time in eons, the ancient darkness hesitated, and in that moment of hesitation, Maya understood that the real convergence was just beginning. The Shadow Collective's hesitation lasted only moments, but in that brief pause, Maya felt something she hadn't expected. Loneliness. Not her own loneliness, but theirs. Ancient, aching loneliness that had been growing for eons. "You're hurt," she said. Not to her friends, but to the darkness pressing around them. The response was immediate and violent. The shadows recoiled as if burned, then pressed forward with renewed fury. But Maya had felt that flash of pain, and now she understood something that no one in the previous convergences had realized. "They're not evil," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chaos. "They're lonely." "Child, they consume entire dimensions," Thane protested, but his voice carried uncertainty. "Because they don't know how to connect any other way," Maya replied. She took a step toward the edge of their protective circle, and every being present tried to stop her. "Maya, no!" Resonance Prime's chimes were sharp with alarm. "They'll destroy you," warned Flux, its colors shifting to panicked reds and oranges. But Maya felt the truth of it now. Carried through the ring network that connected her to ancestral memories going back thousands of years. The Shadow Collective wasn't always like this. They were the first species to develop interdimensional travel, weren't they? The archive of the Thought Realm pulsed with surprise. "How could you know that? Those records were lost eons ago." "Because my ancestor Arya figured it out during the last convergence." Maya's ring was blazing now, showing her memories that weren't her own. The Shadow Collective were explorers, just like humans. They traveled between dimensions looking for others like themselves. But they were so different from everyone they met that nobody understood them. The darkness around them stilled, as if listening. They tried to communicate. But every species they encountered either feared them or tried to control them. So they learned to take what they needed, connection, understanding, purpose, from others. They became parasites because no one would let them be partners. "That's impossible," rumbled Bedrock. "They are beings of pure malevolence." "No," Maya said firmly. "They're beings of pure need. There's a difference." She looked around at all the Covenant bearers. "What if instead of fighting them or trying to understand them, we just invited them to be part of what we're building?" The silence that followed was deafening. Even the Shadow Collective seemed frozen in place. "Child," Thane said carefully, "if you are wrong, they will corrupt everything we have created. All the connections between our realms will become conduits for their hunger." Maya felt fear then, not for herself, but for the possibility that she was wrong and would destroy the beautiful thing they had built together. But then she remembered her mother's words. "The bravest thing you can do, Maya, is offer friendship to someone everyone else has given up on." "I'm not wrong," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. "I can feel it through the rings. They're just really, really bad at making friends." She stepped to the very edge of the circle of light. The darkness pressed close enough that she could see shapes within it. Not monstrous, as she had expected, but strangely beautiful in their alienness. Beings of living shadow with forms that shifted like smoke, but with patterns that suggested intelligence and even hope. "Hello," Maya said to the darkness. "I'm Maya. Would you like to be friends?" The response was immediate chaos. Some shadows recoiled in terror, others surged forward aggressively, and still others simply froze as if they couldn't process what she had said. "I know you're scared," Maya continued, her 9-year-old voice steady despite the cosmic forces swirling around her. "Meeting new people is scary. Sometimes they don't understand you, and sometimes they decide they don't like you before they even get to know you. But that's okay. We're all still figuring out how to be friends with each other, too." One shadow being slowly separated from the collective mass. It was smaller than the others, and its form was less chaotic, almost curious in the way it moved. "You speak to us directly?" Its voice was like whispers in a vast empty space. "Not demands, not threats, not attempts to bind or banish." "Why would I do any of those things?" Maya asked genuinely. "You haven't hurt anyone today. You're just here. And everyone deserves a chance to be part of something nice." The small shadow being drifted closer. "We are the forgotten. We have watched the convergences from the spaces between dimensions for longer than stars have burned. We remember when we first reached out, seeking others like us. We were rejected, cast out, labeled as devourers and destroyers." "That must have really hurt," Maya said, and meant it. The admission seemed to break something in the shadow being. Its form stabilized, becoming more solid, more real. "It did, so we learned to take what was denied to us. If we could not have willing connection, we would forge unwilling bonds. If we could not be welcomed, we would make ourselves necessary through fear." "But you don't want to be feared," Maya said. It wasn't a question. "No," the shadow being whispered. "We want to belong." Maya extended her hand toward the creature. Her ring pulsed with warm light, not harsh or demanding, but gentle and inviting. "Then belong. Help us build something amazing." The shadow being reached out with something that might have been a hand made of living darkness. The moment their contact was made, Maya felt a rush of sensation unlike anything before. The perspective of beings who existed in the spaces between spaces, who could see connections that others missed, who understood the deep structures that held reality together. And through the ring network, every other covenant bearer felt it too. "Incredible," breathed the archive. They perceived dimensional architecture as a living system. Their understanding of space-time mechanics is extraordinary. "They could stabilize the portal network," Resonance Prime chimed excitedly. "Make interdimensional travel safe and permanent." "More than that," added Lumina, her starlight form pulsing with wonder. "They could help us understand how consciousness itself moves between dimensions. The philosophical implications are staggering." But Maya felt something else through the connection. The loneliness of the other shadow beings, watching one of their own experience acceptance for the first time in eons. "All of you," she said, addressing the entire Shadow Collective. All of you are invited. We need what you can teach us, and maybe you need what we can share with you. What followed was like watching a flower bloom in fast forward. One by one, the shadow beings emerged from their collective mass, each one unique, each one carrying knowledge and perspectives that had been shaped by eons of existing in the spaces between realities. The pattern that Maya and her friends had created began to evolve again, incorporating the shadow being's deep understanding of dimensional structure. What had been a simple network of connections became something far more sophisticated, a living framework that could grow and adapt, that could include new species and new perspectives without losing its essential nature. "This is unprecedented," the archive announced, its thought patterns blazing with excitement. "A truly inclusive dimensional network, not conquest, not alliance, but genuine symbiosis on a cosmic scale." Thane lowered his massive head to look at Maya with something approaching awe. "Child, what you have accomplished here will reshape the galaxy. The Forgotten are among the oldest beings in existence. Their knowledge, freely shared rather than taken by force, could advance every civilization by millions of years." But Maya was more interested in the small shadow being she had first contacted. "What's your name?" she asked. We had names once. Before we became the collective." The being's form shimmered. I am Whisper Between Stars." "That's a beautiful name," Maya said, and meant it. "I hope you'll teach me about the spaces between spaces. It sounds really interesting." Through the ring network, she felt a wave of emotion from all the shadow beings, not the hunger and need she had sensed before, but wonder and gratitude. They had been given something they had forgotten was possible, the simple joy of sharing knowledge with friends. "The convergence is complete," announced Bedrock, its mountain voice carrying satisfaction. "But this is not the same as previous gatherings. This is something new entirely." "It's not a convergence at all," Maya realized. "It's a community, a really, really big one." And it was true. Through the enhanced ring network, she could feel connections forming between realms that had never known each other existed. The Crystal Singers were already collaborating with the Energy Dancers on compositions that used mathematics as melody and lightning as harmony. The Forest Consciousness was working with the Liquid Mercury beings to create gardens that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most remarkably, the shadow beings were teaching other species how to perceive the hidden connections between all things, while learning in return how to exist in normal space-time without consuming it. "Your ancestor Arya would be proud," Thane told Maya. "She dreamed of permanent peace between dimensions. You have created something even greater, permanent friendship." Maya felt a warm glow that had nothing to do with her ring. But then a thought occurred to her. "Wait, how long have I been here? My parents are going to be so worried." Flux's colors shifted to an amused purple-pink. "Time flows differently between dimensions. Only moments have passed in your realm." "But before you return," Whisper Between Stars said, its form stabilizing into something almost solid, "you must understand. This network you have helped create will need tending. The connections must be maintained, new species welcomed, conflicts resolved." "Oh," Maya said, understanding immediately. "You want me to be like my ancestor, a diplomat between dimensions." "Only if you wish it," Thane said quickly. "You are still very young. There is time to grow, to learn." Maya thought about her life on Earth. School, friends, her parents' research. Then she thought about this amazing community of beings from across the universe, all connected by friendship and mutual curiosity. "Can I do both?" she asked. "Be a regular kid on Earth and also help with the dimensional community? I mean, I don't want my friends at school to feel left out, and my parents would be really excited to learn about all this." The laughter that rippled through the ring network came from dozens of species, each expressing amusement in their own unique way. Crystal chimes, starlight pulses, color shifts, rumbling dragon mirth, even whispered shadow laughter. Only a human child would worry about including everyone, the archive observed with something like fondness. That's exactly why this worked, Resonance Prime added. That's exactly why you succeeded where others failed. As Maya prepared to return to her own dimension, she felt the rings of all the covenant bearers pulse in unison. The network they had built would remain, growing stronger with each new connection, each new friendship, each new species brave enough to reach out to others. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" she asked. "Yes," said Thane, his golden eyes warm with affection. "The beginning of something wonderful." Maya stepped back through the original portal, her heart full of joy and her mind buzzing with possibilities. She had left Earth that morning as a curious 9-year-old with a mysterious family heirloom. She returned as the youngest ambassador in galactic history, carrying the hopes and friendship of countless worlds. And in the abandoned research facility where her adventure had begun, her ring pulsed gently, maintaining its connection to a community that spanned dimensions. A community where every being mattered, every perspective was valuable, and every friendship made the universe a little brighter. Her mother would definitely want to hear about this. After Maya finished her homework, of course, some things, even in a universe full of wonder, still had to be done in the right order. The ring on her finger hummed with gentle laughter from friends across the cosmos, and Maya smiled as she headed home to tell her parents about her day.